In this video, I drive around the city of Mayfield, Kentucky. Mayfield was hit by an EF-4 tornado back in December of 2021, and I recorded this footage 4 months after the unfortunate event. Mayfield is in the far western part of Kentucky. It's about a 40-minute drive south of Paducah and about a half-hour drive north of the state line with Tennessee. The closest big city to Mayfield would be Nashville, Tennessee, which is about a 2.5-hour drive southeast. We're starting things off on the main road that enters the downtown area from the north. As we cross over this railroad overpass, you'll be able to see the damage instantly. I remember seeing the headline for the tornado that ripped through Mayfield back in December, and I remember thinking how awful it must have been. Then I visited the town for myself, and I couldn't believe the devastation. This twister unfortunately went right through the heart of town. It's one thing to read about it in an article, and it's another to see it firsthand. Most of the damage was done to the downtown area and to the part of town that's just north of downtown. There were multiple historic buildings in town that were either heavily damaged or destroyed, one of those being the Graves County Courthouse, which was hit pretty hard, and you'll see that later on in the video. The tornado that hit Mayfield is often referred to as the Western Kentucky Tornado. It touched ground in Obion County, Tennessee, which sits on the border with Kentucky. It then traveled northeast and headed through western Kentucky, and unfortunately, Mayfield sat directly within its path. This particular twister was on the ground for 165 miles, heading in a northeast direction. Other towns in western Kentucky that were hit included Princeton, Dawson Springs, and Bremen, but no other town was hit harder than Mayfield. The twister that went through Mayfield saw peak estimated winds of up to 190 miles per hour, which made it an EF4 tornado on the Fujita scale. For those who don't know, the strength of a tornado can rank from 1 to 5 on the Fujita scale, with an EF5 being the most powerful. So an EF4 twister is considered to be on the more powerful end. All in all, the twister was a part of a larger outbreak that included other tornadoes, and the December 2021 outbreak was responsible for 80 lives. Along the twister's 165-mile path, there were times where it was more than a mile wide. A warning was sent out for the city of Mayfield at around 9:26 p.m. on the night of December 10th, 2021. On the southwestern side of town, there was a candle factory that had about 110 workers inside. The building was a large metal-framed warehouse, and the tornado crushed it as it ripped through. 9 of the workers that were inside the factory that night lost their lives, and many others were injured. The city of Mayfield is in Graves County, and the death count for Graves County from this twister was 24. December 10th was a nasty weather day for the middle part of the country as 66 tornadoes were recorded. The tornado that hit Mayfield, however, went down as being the longest tornado path on record for the month of December, as once again, it was on the ground for 165 miles. There was a second tornado on the same day, however, that paralleled the path of this one to the south that stretched for 122 miles. What made this significant is that even the shorter one of the two would have broken the record for the longest tornado path in the month of December, as the previous record was a 121-mile path that was set back in 1956. Mother Nature wasn't kind to many people throughout the central United States in December of 2021, as it was the most tornado activity for the month of December on record for the country. While tornadoes aren't unheard of for the month of December, the usual peak months for tornadoes are either April, May, or June. The month also provided several December records for warm temperatures throughout the states. Only 5 days after this tornado outbreak that mainly affected Arkansas, Tennessee, and western Kentucky, there happened to be another historic severe weather event through a different part of the Midwest. A derecho hit parts of eastern Nebraska and western Iowa. It was the first derecho on record for the month of December, and it ended up costing the lives of 5. It also gave the state of Minnesota its first recorded tornado in the month of December, as there were dozens of them reported throughout Nebraska and Iowa. For those who don't know, a derecho is a storm that brings a line of severe thunderstorms along with very strong straight-line winds, usually with gusts of over 50 miles per hour. This is the Graves County Courthouse, which was built all the way back in 1888. It's a part of the larger Mayfield Downtown Commercial District, as the district was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1984. But as you can see, the courthouse, along with most of the other buildings in the district, fell victim to the December 10th tornado. The streets that went through the core of downtown Mayfield were still blocked off to traffic 4 months later, as major cleanup of the leftover debris was still taking place. Here's a photo of the courthouse before the tornado from Google Street View. From this point, I head south away from the tornado damage, as there's a good-sized portion of the town that wasn't hit from the tornado. Before I get to my next talking point, I think that most people understand that this tornado displaced many people and they're never going to get their homes back. When natural disasters hit, it's common to see a population loss as people lose their homes and they need a place to stay. Mother Nature can be very unforgiving. With that said, I'll now talk about the history before mentioning the economic stats for the city today. Mayfield saw its first settler back in 1819. With the area's geography, Graves County was in neutral territory during the Civil War. However, it's documented that most of the area's settlers considered themselves to be Confederates. The city's website claims that Mayfield was home to the first female sheriff in the United States, who was Lewis Roach, back in 1922. It was her husband who was originally the sheriff, but he was killed on duty. For those who know Kentucky, you'll know that Kentucky historically is known for its tobacco culture, as tobacco farming for a long time was the lone industry of the region. Mayfield was just like many other Kentucky towns back in the day that depended on the production of tobacco. There were also some clothing factories in town that helped Mayfield grow early on. Back in 1988, the movie titled as In Country had filmed some scenes in Mayfield. Some of those scenes included the courthouse and other places in downtown that we know will never look the same again. Here, you can see the population history of Mayfield and Graves County, as the population for the area has remained about the same over the last several decades. For the most part, people haven't left and people haven't moved in. These numbers might look different during the next census count after the destructive tornado ripped through town, but I feel like Mayfield is a big enough town and it will be able to gather enough resources to rebuild. With that said, make sure to check out some of the links down below if you feel inclined to help out and give a donation to the town to help them rebuild. Mayfield was home to around 10,000 people in 2020, however the economy isn't all that great, which is the case throughout most of rural Kentucky. The median household income is about half of the national average, and so are the median values of owner-occupied housing units. The town has a high poverty rate as well. Usually, when you see high poverty rates, you'll also see higher crime rates and lower performing schools. Mayfield is not an exception to that, as it looks like a lot of the rest of rural Kentucky. Drug usage is a problem here too, as the opioid epidemic has hit rural Kentucky pretty hard. Speaking of schools, to the right is Mayfield High School, home of the Cardinals. There were a few signs off of the main drag that said that the Cardinals were the Class A football champions in 2002 and in 2010. Among the most notable people from Mayfield include singer and songwriter Betsy Cook, Major League Baseball umpire Tripp Gibson, country music singer Kevin Skinner, and professional wrestler Chuck Taylor. There's a second high school in Mayfield, and this is Graves County High School, home of the Eagles. This school is on the far northwestern edge of town. And now we're back on the east side of town, closer to Mayfield High School. As you can see, the tornado didn't touch this part of town. One positive from the devastating tornado is that people from across the state have come together to help clean up the town and help give to those who have been directly affected by the twister. Emergency management officials reported that donations and supplies were overflowing in these communities in the days directly after the tornado. There's a town in Indiana that's just north of Louisville that's called Henryville. Students from Henryville High School collected donations for kids that were affected by the Western Kentucky tornadoes. People from Henryville know the feeling that Mayfield is going through, as Henryville had a twister rip through their town back in 2012. There were plenty of other groups from across Kentucky that helped by bringing bottled water and other common supplies that people consume. Well, down below, if you'd like, you can match my $50 donation to the Disaster Relief Fund by clicking on the link. I do end the video here. Don't forget to consider subscribing to the channel to see more content where I explore the United States of America. Other videos on places like what you saw here can be found in my Kentucky playlist or in my USA Small Towns playlist. Last but not least, if you can't get enough of me on here, you can always go follow me on my other social media accounts, and those links are below. We'll see you next time.